Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here, Halloween week. I love it. I know everybody probably celebrated on Saturday, but a lot of people are going to probably have some Thursday night parties as well, and certainly during the day, trick-or-treating. I hope you have a blast with your kids. Don't soap up windows if you're one of the teenagers that feel like you're in your rowdy years and stuff like that. Be mindful of your neighbors. Be nice. Make an effort. Halloween's a blast, and I don't understand the people that don't like the fact that adults still celebrate it. It's fun. Questions or comments about the show, reach me via email, john@wordballoon.com. Best to reach me there, not private messages on Facebook or Twitter. That's the place to reach me if you want me to critique your book or if you have questions or comments about the show, john@wordballoon.com. Thanks a lot for listening through the commercials. I greatly appreciate it. There's one more spot left, and then we will get to the show. But as always, thank you for your attention and patronage. We'll be back after this last spot. Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Wow, really happy to close out Halloween week with another Weird Balloon. And this is a look back at my conversation with Dana Gould, a wonderful alt comedian. Dana has a lot of weird Halloween-related projects that he's worked on over the years, whether it's his IFC show, Stan vs. Evil, 3 great seasons, tremendous horror comedy that obviously honored the 70s horror films. We talk about that in this conversation. It was a great opportunity to talk to Dana because he has that. He's always doing live performances of Plan 9 from Outer Space with a bunch of his comedian friends all over LA. He's also done it in New York. He hasn't brought it to Chicago yet. I'm hoping he will. And also I hope to be in a town where I see him perform that live because, again, he's such a fan. And, of course, the main focus of today, Dana Gould's love of Planet of the Apes, which of course means that we're going to have another edition of Ape Talk. I'm letting my original intro describe Dana's love of apes because he's a lifelong fan, just like me, grew up on the movies, saw them in the theaters, saw them on television, experienced the Roddy McDowall television series when it came out literally on the heels of the 5th Battle for Planet of the Apes film. He has his own Dr. Zaius outfit and performs live and does Q&As as Dr. Zaius, so we talk about that. He's hilarious, and he's such a Planet of the Apes devotee, and man, what a great opportunity he got last year when Boom Studios was smart and tapped him to adapt Rod Serling's original screenplay of Planet of the Apes into a graphic novel with Chad Lewis. It was a terrific book. It was a very great production. Boom has been a wonderful keeper of Planet of the Apes, creating new stuff, putting out the old Marvel stuff as well. And, it's been wonderful. So we're going to be talking to Dana Gould about Planet of the Apes and the adaptation of Serling's thing, and then really just get into his comedy as well. Just really one of my favorites. And a great podcaster as well. The Dana Gould Hour pops up about every month. If he gets busy with TV or film stuff, the poor guy had a serious car accident. He and Bobcat Goldthwait, and they certainly survived, and they're okay. But it could have been really horrible, and thank God it wasn't. But it definitely set him back a month or two. But he has a brand new podcast out for Halloween, the Dana Gould Hour. Look for it on your podcast stuff. And if you enjoy the deep dives that you hear at Word Balloon, I think you're going to really enjoy listening to Dana because he's such a film fan and television fan and music fan, and he always has interesting interviews on his own podcast. So Dana Gould talking about Planet of the Apes on today's Word Balloon. All brought to you by Aftershock Comics, a great month that Aftershock has been having in October. Almost sounds like Yoda saying, a great month Aftershock has had this month. But it's true. Unbelievable stuff. And we closed out yesterday with things like Jimmy's Bastards, the complete collection came out. You've got Marguerite Bennett's wonderful graphic novel, Horde. There's Dark Arc After the Flood, #1. Cullen Bunn and Juan Doe are back with a new arc about what happened to Noah after the flood, as it's called. You've got Dark Red #7 from Tim Seeley. Juan Doe's own Bad Reception. And, of course, Garth Ennis's A Walk Through Hell Volume 2 with Gordon Suzuka, The Cathedral, continuing the Walk Through Hell saga. Great stuff. The Collected Last Space Race, Killer Groove wrapped up. Ollie Masters and Owen Marin's wonderful L.A. crime series about the music business, Cullen Bunn's Knights Temporal, the first volume of Stronghold from Phil Hester and Ryan Kelly, among the great books from Aftershock Comics. Don't take my word for it. Go to their website. You will find amazing books, full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond codes on how to order these through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. All right, without further ado, let me give you my full-throated introduction to Dana Gould from the beginning of 2018 when we had this conversation. I'm happy to represent it now for Halloween and Weird Balloon on today's episode. I can't believe it. It's been years, but let's kick in the music because it's time for a rare opportunity for an episode of Ape Talk. That's right, Planet of the Apes. Very excited about today's guest, Dana Gould, the wonderful comedian who is the host of the Dana Gould Hour, the podcast that I listen to every month when a new episode comes out. Also the creator of Stand Against Evil on IFC. They are in the midst of planning Season 3, and we talked a little bit about that on the podcast. Our primary reason to talk to Dana, though, today is about Planet of the Apes. Dana is a longtime fan and has a rare opportunity to contribute to the Apes mythos. You might know that if you're a huge Planet of the Apes fan, especially of the original movie, Rod Serling is credited for the original screenplay, adapting Pierre Boulez's original novel. The screenplay that Serling originally wrote is very different from what we got in the film in 1968 with Charlton Heston. We talked about the differences. There's a YouTube video that you can find that was created for 20th Century Fox by Arthur P. Jacobs, Charlton Heston, and Edward G. Robinson to kind of explain what they were trying to do with the movie, that the makeup would work, and we get a glimpse of the original Serling screenplay, which is vastly different. The lead character is named Thomas, not Taylor, something that Dana brings up. And I'll let Dana get into the details, but it's a good way to illustrate what is to come from Boom Studios, because Dana is getting the opportunity to adapt the original Serling screenplay into a graphic novel for Boom Studios. Dana Gould is doing the comic book scripting, and Chad Lewis is doing the art. You might remember Chad from some great work on the Avengers for Marvel. It looks amazing, the promo piece that they have already submitted. And again, I know Gould's love for the Planet of the Apes. He talks a lot about it on his podcast. And Dana is the kind of fan of Planet of the Apes that many of us are regarding Star Wars or Star Trek. Well, Apes was Dana's franchise, and it's a great opportunity to talk to him about his love for the project and the franchise, and his own participation in some various comedy bits over the years, not only on his podcast, but again, we'll get into it on the conversation. Really nice to have the opportunity to talk to Dana Gould on today's Word Balloon. It's all brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you very much, League, for your wonderful support. Thank you via Patreon for subscribing to Word Balloon and keeping the lights on and everything running here. Word Balloon is free. It'll always be free. But if you like what I do here, you can go to patreon.com/wordballoon or wordballoon.com and click on the Patreon ad. But I thank you every week because I mean it. Thank you very much, League of Word Balloon listeners. Well, this is a real treat for me because I'm a longtime Dana Gould fan. He was a writer for The Simpsons for many years. He, as we briefly discussed, was part of the Ben Stiller show and doing sketch writing for them. A real important voice in the world of alternative comedy, and a huge Planet of the Apes fan. So without further ado, very excited to present to you my conversation with comedian Dana Gould about one of our favorite subjects, Planet of the Apes, the new adaptation of Rod Serling's original screenplay. It will be a Boom graphic novel later this year. Let's get into our conversation with Dana Gould now on Word Balloon. Dana Gould, welcome to Word Balloon. This is a real thrill for me, sir. I'm a longtime fan of the podcast, of your stand-up, Stand Against Evil, so congratulations on the career trajectory and where it's going, and really excited about this Apes project.
Yeah, thank you. I harder to hit a moving target. That's why I keep working. Anything that keeps me out of my head is a positive. That's how I look at it.
That's interesting because it seems like you're getting to do a lot of the projects that are probably dream jobs, and I want to hit on those. But
that's absolutely true, by the way. Not for lack of trying, but I'm very grateful for the opportunities.
Well, and this opportunity that's coming up with Boom, adapt a graphic novel based on Rod Serling's original screenplay for Planet of the Apes, which
Crazy.
diehard ape fans know did change a lot from what we got in the '68 Charlton Heston movie.
Yeah, it's very, very different. And, I was aware of it from, obviously seeing the credits on the film. I knew he was involved. And it plays like a giant Twilight Zone episode. I mean,
Definitely.
his fingerprints are all over that movie. And then I remember when I was a kid getting the first issue of Marvel's Planet of the Apes magazine.
Oh, yeah.
That I later went out and bought a full run of, thanks eBay. But Greg Nicotero has a full run of Famous Monsters, so he completely shames me.
I understand.
But he's got Walking Dead money. I'm just got Stand Against Evil money. Those are two very different things, I can assure you. That Walking Dead money's getting silly. But there was an interview with Rod Serling in the first issue of Marvel's Planet of the Apes magazine, and he talked about, I remember it, and I even remember the quote. It said the structure of the piece was mine, the trajectory of the piece was still mine, but it was rewritten for budget and things like that. Obviously,
sure.
As people may or may not know, the original book written by Pierre Boulle, it's basically Gulliver's Travels. It's a satire of the humanity's foibles. It's not science fiction. The explanation for man losing his preeminence is that he did not use his intelligence, and so his intelligence withered and left him. It's a very poetic, non-science fiction-y thing. There's no simian flu.
Right. That's right. Okay.
Right. Yeah. It's a very sort of poetic, satirical reason. Rod Serling took that, and the city, and they lived in a modern city. They had helicopters, and it was very much Gulliver's Travels. Pierre Boulle did not consider it a major work. He considered it one of his sort of side things.
Okay.
Didn't consider it a major work. The screenplay of Planet of the Apes that Rod Serling wrote, the first draft is dated from December 1964, and then there's a rewrite in March of 1965. Being a writer myself, I'm always suspicious of anything dated in December, because what that tells me is you put it off and you're just frantically trying to finish before the holidays. So I'm working mostly off the March version.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
They're not very different, but
they are very different. You say?
No, they're not.
Oh, okay. I see.
It's long. It's 140 pages. It's long, and but to me, what struck me as the main change outside of the fact that they do live in a modern city, they have helicopters and cars, and Rod has things that aren't in the book. They cross the street on monkey bars and things like that. There's a lot of, it would have cost $1 trillion to make. But it's really, once we established that Taylor, who is called Thomas, and was called Thomas right up until just before shooting, I think it's only in the shooting draft his name changes to Taylor. He's not Thomas in the Serling draft is not the Charlton Heston character. Charlton Heston character, what makes that movie really fascinating, one of the many, many things, is he's a misanthrope. Taylor hates humanity and has to defend it, which is a great role to play. And I think that I actually think that Charlton Heston did an amazing job in that role.
Yes.
you need a larger than life character to carry that film. And if you don't believe me, look at the one that came out with Mark Wahlberg.
Agreed.
Yeah, you need somebody to carry that film, and he does quite ably. So in this draft, Thomas, and this is what I'm doing in the novel, I really want to show you the other version. Thomas is a very down the middle, mid-60s Rod Serling liberal. Like any hero from any episode of The Twilight Zone, he was he's a sensitive guy. He's a open-minded guy. He is not the asshole that Taylor is.
Sure.
And Taylor is a flaming asshole.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's that line in the movie when he's talking to Landon, and he says, "Your loved ones are dead and forgotten for 20 centuries. 20 centuries. Even if you could get back, they'd think you were something that fell out of a tree." I was like, aren't you in charge of morale? You're the captain. It'd be like on Star Trek. "Sir, we're surrounded by Klingons. Good, we deserve to die." So Thomas, as in the script and in the novel, the graphic novel, is a very different character than Taylor. And what happens is once he speaks, it is a political thriller. It's not what you know as Planet of the Apes. It feels a lot more like 7 Days in May.
Ooh, I love that movie.
Me too. And it feels a lot more like 7 Days in May than Planet of the Apes. Basically, Thomas represents something that this culture wants to keep secret. He has allies in the culture, but the power structure is against it. And it's a lot of conference rooms, lecture halls, meetings, and offices. It's very much a political thriller. And I was really excited to be able to put that into to translate that. It's a really fascinating approach that you don't it never occurred to me that you could tell this story that way.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't like having to wake up in the morning and figure out what lines of Rod Serling's I'm going to cut. But if I used everything, it would be, the size of the Encyclopedia Britannica. So you have to work to the medium that you're in.
True. And is this your first graphic novel?
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
So where do you go to learn how to write in this form versus screenplay or stand up and the other things you write?
Well, Daphne and Gavin at Boom Comics were really great in terms of they kind of I went to school a little bit with them to figure out how to do it. And then after the first batch of pages, they were very good about this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. Okay. And I went back and was able to do it. There's a lot of just mechanical things in terms of, a 2-page spread has to start on an, even to odd, not an odd to even, just publishing things I wouldn't know.
Certainly.
And just being able to economize. You get one piece of action per frame. There's no he comes over and then nope. So you have to tell a story with a great deal of economy. But I'm used to that, having worked in a half-hour format and, The Simpsons and Stan Against Evil and all the other shows I've worked on, Parks and Rec and what have you.
Sure.
You have to tell stories with a lot of economy. And, I'm developing a show right now. Hopefully that'll become a show. And the original version of it was an hour long. And I really felt after we, got it ready to pitch, I was like, I'd really rather pitch this as a half an hour. And I went back and changed it. And basically, if it's an hour show, it's about the situation depicted. And if it's a half hour show, it's about the characters. That's how I would phrase it. And I sort of changed the focus completely onto the characters, and it felt much more comfortable to me. I like telling a big story with a small scope. And that lent itself very adroitly to the graphic novel. It's sort of the same muscles that you use, just being very economical with how you tell a story.
I was listening to your most recent podcast, and I heard you, I think it was the most recent one, where you mentioned that you've taken a lot of writing cues from listening to old-time radio, and especially a show like Dragnet. Yeah. And I love that because, again, man, I'm with you. I love old-time radio, and I really think Dragnet and the Radio Gunsmoke in particular are like such great shows.
But
and
I just hear William Conrad, and I just imagine him lumbering down the
he's like Radio Spencer Tracy because
he's
so powerful.
On everything. That and that guy Robert Daner, who was Paladin, they're on everything.
They got those great voices, those booming voices, and I think some rerun fans might know Jake and the Fat Man, and certainly Ken. And I know you're a Meat TV watcher as well.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know the old joke about Jake and the Fat Man?
Please.
So I forget who it was. It was a really funny comedian that I worked with in the 80s, and it was how do you want to be Robert Conrad's agent? Hey, Robert, there's a new show coming out. It's called Jake and the Fat Man. You're not Jake.
I was bummed. I heard Bryan Cranston say that he, it had a role on Jake and the Fat Man, and it was so disappointing because like Conrad wouldn't be there for him to like do lines and stuff, and he had to like deal with a stand-in, and that Conrad at that point was just cashing a check and not really giving a damn anymore.
That happens a lot. You go, I know. Like on Matlock, that you'd shoot out Mr. Griffith so he could go home. It gets down to a science.
Well, back to the apes. There's that great screen test that I guess was kind of a proof of concept.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, with Edward G. Robinson.
Yes, which is so interesting, and a great what-if casting had he been, able to, deal with the makeup and do the role. When's the first time you saw that footage? I saw it on the DVD. Yeah,
I guess that was the first time I saw it, or I saw a clip of it somewhere. But yeah, it was when I saw I'd read about it, obviously. Like, it's hard for me to articulate just, how inundated I am with information about, this. I mean, for whatever reason, these films meant so much to me as a kid. Like, I really focused on them. There's one or two things that you'd never know it to come in my house. I don't live in the,
Ape City.
It's not like I'm not like a Star Trek fan whose living room looks like the bridge. But it meant so much to me. And, I was reading Famous Monsters as a kid and Starlog and Planet of the Apes magazine. And, I was aware of it. I knew about it. And it's so funny because, Planet of the Apes magazine or Famous Monsters, they'd have an interview. I was 13 years old and I knew who Dick Zanuck was.
Sure. The guy running Fox.
The guy running Fox. He was married to Nova.
Yes, indeed. Linda Hamilton, absolutely.
Harrison. Linda Hamilton was in Terminator. Yeah. That's a count.
That's right. Linda Hamilton is Terminator. Linda Harrison is Nova. Shame on me. Very good.
Also married to James Cameron at the time, I believe. And I'm going to be with Lisa Harrison this Friday, oddly.
Are you going to a convention?
No, it's a very strange thing. When does this drop?
Probably next week.
Oh, good. Then I can spoil it. USC is having a 50th anniversary screening of the film, and they're having a month-long thing. They have a lot of stuff from the archives, and they're doing a giant panel. They're showing the film, and there's a lot of stuff going on over the course of the month.
Wow.
But they're showing the film, and then they're having a panel with the surviving people, Linda Harrison, Dan Strepek, the makeup artist, Bill Creeber, who was the art director, Matt Reeves, who directed Dawn and War for the Planet of the Apes, his producer, his co-writer, this giant thing. And then one of my bizarre side careers that I've developed over the years is I do personal. I will appear as Dr. Zayas if you need Dr. Zayas.
I'm aware. Absolutely, man. I loved your interview. Yeah. On
It's
TCM.
comedic. It's an idea I wrote years ago in 1992. I was a writer on the Ben Stiller Show on Fox.
Yeah, great show.
I had an idea. It was to do the commercials for play. Like you'll see if Hamilton comes to your town, they have the commercial for Hamilton.
Sure.
And it's just clips of the musical. And I wanted to do a commercial for Coming to Town, Planet of the Apes, the musical. This was before The Simpsons did it. And the second act of the show, there would be from the producers of Planet of the Apes, the musical, Hal Holbrook is Dr. Zayas as Mark Twain tonight. And it was Dr. Zayas dressed as Mark Twain doing Mark Twain tonight. And we got canceled before we got a chance to do it. And the idea of Planet of the Apes, the musical, ended up at The Simpsons. I think it was two people having the same idea at the same time. And they did a much better job than I would have done it. I could not.
Yes.
Yeah. Chimpanzee to chimpanzee. I tip my hat.
Absolutely.
I believe those were mostly written by David Cohen. I could be wrong.
Okay. Wow.
Could be wrong. David Cohen, who developed Futurama.
Sure. Yes.
So I ended up doing this years later for John Hodgman. And it's on YouTube if you want to see it. It's if you just go on YouTube and go Dana Gould, Dr. Zayas, Mark Twain, it'll come up. And then from that, I did that, and then and then that was like a one-off, and it worked great because I'm friends with, as I mentioned his name before, I'm friends with Greg Nicotero from KNBFX, and so I just basically called Greg and I said, hey Greg, can one of the guys over there do a Dr. Zayas makeup on me? I was like, sure.
No problem.
No problem. Andy Schoenberg has the makeup and the suit. I was like, great, he's hired. And so then that happened. And then when Joel Hodgson was doing the new Mystery Science Theater, he was doing a crowdfunding telethon.
Yes.
And he said, hey, could you do it? Could you do Dr. Zayas again for the telethon? I was like, sure. And then my friend was doing a Christmas show at a theater here with Paul Williams. And he wanted to know if I would come out and sing as Zayas and sing a song with Paul Williams, who was in Battle for the Planet. And then I ended up on TCM when they did Planet of the Apes as part of their summer series. Ben Mankiewicz interviewed me. So it just turned into this bizarre side career. And I do it funny. I play him like an old Hollywood name dropper. It's just I wouldn't do it straight, but he's like, don't play cards with Alan Alda, just stuff like that.
Or funny story about Chuck on the set.
Exactly. It's that kind of stuff. And so when USC was doing this thing, they said, would you want to come out? Could you do it? And I was very like, I will do it, if everybody knows I'm doing it. I don't want anybody surprised in a bad way.
Sure.
And, they know that I'm not a lunatic and da-da-da-da. So this Friday I will be hanging out with Nova in Dr. Zayas makeup. Should be fun.
That's excellent, man. Wow. And the guy, and I'm hoping that you'll remember the actor's name, but one of the mutants from Beneath, Don Pedro? Am I saying?
Yeah, Don Pedro Colley.
There we go. Yes.
Yeah.
He's come through town. I'm kicking myself, man. You were in Chicago back in the fall, and I know, or late winter or whatever, and I know you had Svengoolie on stage. And
yes, yeah.
So I wasn't able to see your shows then, but Linda and Don Pedro came to an autograph show a couple of years ago. One of my cartoonist buddies, Art Baltazar, is a huge Apes fan as well, and was over the moon to get to meet Nova and
sure.
Pedro. So it's. No, that's excellent. And I saw the Ben Mankiewicz portrayal that you did. Talking to Paul Williams, though, I've seen that great YouTube clip where he showed up while they were shooting Battle. And,
on the Tonight Show?
Yeah, and he sings the song in full Julius, not Julius, what's his name?
Virgil.
Virgil, thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, and no, that's good stuff. Yeah, shit on.
Yeah, it was really, yeah. No, he was great when I think it's a testament to where he was at the time when we were talking, and Battle was filmed in early 1973, and Paul was a much younger man, probably a little bit more adventurous in his habits. And I said to him, I said, God, it must be impossible to have a cold when you're in this makeup. And he said, it's impossible to do a lot of things that involve your nose.
I've seen the documentary, so I know what you're talking about. Which, by the way, for listeners, you should totally see that Paul Williams documentary. It's a fascinating story, and he's not ashamed to talk about his cocaine problem for years, for decades, really. And I'm really glad he's cleaned up. And he's an incredible guy, man. I mean, it's easy to like laugh off Paul Williams, but when you really step back and see the body of work plus the music. I mean, we see him on, people might see him in the Smokey and the Bandit movies or the Odd Couple reruns or whatever, and it's like, yeah, whatever. And it's like, no, Phantom of Paradise, I know, isn't it, right? Is that the title?
Yeah, Phantom of Paradise, sure.
Yeah, man. No, I think we're around the same age, and I'm pretty sure we were reading the same magazines and watching the same movies.
I'm sure we were.
So, yeah, definitely, man. No, and again, that's a great thing, man. You're such an Uber fan. And it's amazing how it has intersected with your life. Again, listening to the podcast. For a while, weren't you living in Roddy McDowall's home?
Yes, I was living in Roddy McDowall, and my ex-wife and my kids still live there. I was there this morning.
Okay, all right.
And the text that I just got that you might have heard was me being told that my daughter's cat is currently on the roof of Roddy McDowall's old house. And yeah, we still get mail for him occasionally. We'll get like a United Airlines mileage thing or something.
Did you have the lawgiver statue for a while as well?
Wow. I had a copy of the bust, the bust from the courtroom.
Okay, sure. Wow.
The original is, I think there were two originals. One of them, the one that I know of, is owned by a guy named Brian Peck. And he bought it at the Sammy Davis Jr. estate sale. And Sammy, Arthur P. Jacobs and Sammy were friends. He gave it to Sammy because Sammy loved the movie. And it was in Sammy's backyard by his pool. It was painted white. And Brian refurbished it. And then and Greg Nicotero has the mold of it. Yeah.
Wow.
You can get one if you need one.
And weren't you also John Chambers' neighbor?
No, I was Dan Strepek's neighbor.
Excuse me. Okay, and that's, as you said earlier, he wanted the makeup guys.
On Friday, but I doubt he'll remember me. I didn't know I was his neighbor until I literally met him at like a neighborhood meeting, like a parking meeting or something.
Sure.
And I was like, "You're Dan Strepek." He's like, "Yeah, I am." I was like, "I know you."
That's insane. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it was very bizarre. And then he ended up, like, there was a knock on my door like a week later, and he gave me a chimpanzee extras mask. I was like, "Here, you might want this."
Outstanding.
I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, really. You don't have one of those like wig kind of mannequin things that you can obviously slap it on, I'm assuming.
I ended up. Yeah. Oh, it's well protected now.
That's actually, I love the idea of Sammy having a barbecue, and let's set up those hamburgers right by the lawgiver. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah. If you want potato salad, man, it's by the lawgiver.
That's outstanding. And again, your love of the movies. Well, honestly, you keep mentioning the Marvel magazines, and I'm really glad you do, because those were incredible. And Boom reprinted those in the last couple years and put them in nice deluxe hardcover editions. And
they did.
Yeah, man. So Doug Munch.
Why did they tell me this?
Oh man, yeah. I was gonna say, I was wondering if because they have the license now, and all the stuff that's ever made for this stuff, like all the Conan stuff, stays with the Robert Howard estate, and Marvel, did the 70s Conan comics and magazines. And, for a while, Dark Horse had the license. So all that stuff, Dark Horse has the right to reprint it. And they usually are able to get that old stuff and do it. Same thing happened with the Marvel Star Wars stuff when it was at Dark Horse for a while. And so yeah, Boom, having the Ape license and everything, they've got the access to all those great black and white comics. And as I'm sure you remember, good Lord, I mean, like for Escape of the Planet of the Apes, you get that scene of Zaius and, or rather Zira and Cornelius and Dr. Milo leaving the planet.
Yeah. A bit of a stretch logically.
But comics, it's okay. I kind of, them actually figuring out how to run the spaceship. Oh, please. Have you read those Andrew Gasca?
It's a little wet, but I'm sure we'll be fine.
Have you read the Andrew Gasca novels that have come out in the last couple of years? Because
no, they are in my pile, my bottomless pile of stuff that I hope to read.
They're really
but I have
fun.
to wait until I'm sick.
Yeah,
because that's the only time I ever read it.
Believe me, I understand. They're really, really fun, and I was really impressed. I've actually had him on the podcast a couple times as well. And again, he gives us great backstory before the first movie, and you get Taylor and Landon, and I think mostly it focuses on Taylor and Landon. And forgive me, I'm Dodge, right? Isn't Dodge the third?
Yeah,
one? Yeah. You get kind of their backstories before the mission. And it's really, it's really interesting. I don't want to tip anything, but yeah, it's.
Which one is that? And which one is that one? Is that Archives or?
No, I can't remember the titles, but they were, they've got kind of movie-ish titles and everything. But yeah, Andrew Gasca is the author, and he's written 2 ape books that do stitch together, like I said, the backstory of the '68 movie, and then also. Pretty sure it's in the second novel that explains how the apes dredge up the rocket, or and how and kind of explains how they figure out the technology that Milo figures out.
I mean that is truly it was a brilliant play on his part. I mean, it really was. It was a conspiracy on the Planet.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yes,
I do. I do have it.
There you go, man. No, it's great stuff.
Yeah, and it's really amazing how Paul Dane came up with that. It's breathtaking. It's so clever.
Well, the tones of the movies too are so amazing. And again, I know I'm talking to the right guy about this because. First of all, your essay on your podcast about Beneath the Planet of the Apes is hilarious. And they should include it pretty much on the DVDs moving forward because you really have to step back and go, who greenlit this movie that is ridiculously depressing?
It's amazing. Yeah, I agree. It's like, and I do believe that it was Heston's idea. Like, I'll do it, but I'm going to kill everybody. Sure thing, Chuck. Whatever you want, buddy.
And again, in that documentary that is part of like the box set now, and I'm sure anytime you buy The Apes that Roddy McDowall narrates, it's really cool because it does come through that Heston was such a champion of the initial thing, really pushed it through, and
would not have gotten made without him at all.
Yeah, which is awesome. And I know you had, and again, based on your podcast, you talk about that great moment when you got to meet him on Politically Incorrect, Bill Maher's 90s show.
And there's not a frame of film where we are not in a 2-shot ever.
Crazy.
I just wanted one like still frame of us, like, because I did shake his hand when he came out. Didn't make the cut. Yeah.
Bummer, man. No, I understand. Believe me, as a broadcaster, yes, the people that you get to meet, and when you get to meet your heroes, and you do want something to preserve that one. Of course, you've got that great autograph picture from Apes that
I do, yeah. And I also have, I have a lot of friends of mine wrote on Saturday Night Live when he hosted, and there's a lot of great. The funniest story was the first time he hosted, and they were doing a rehearsal, and Chris Farley was. Either playing an ape or a human, and he was in a cage, and he was miming masturbating the way apes will. And my friend said, and then we just heard this booming voice from across the soundstage, Chris Farley, knock it off.
That's awesome, man. And again, there's a guy that we only know, or the younger people might only know near the end of his life and career, the NRA guy, the guy in the Michael Moore movie. Yeah, that unfortunately,
that's a shame too, because I don't agree with his politics, but he was of that generation. Was like, yeah, we have our politics, but it's not our life; it's our politics. Yep. That's gone away, unfortunately.
Yeah, amen. Absolutely.
I can tell you, I've said this before, so I'm not, like, this is no great bulletin. I'm obviously a big Hollywood liberal. Charlton Heston was one of the nicest people I've ever met, and Michael Moore was one of the most annoying people I've ever met. So there you go.
Sure. Sure. Absolutely, man. Well, and again, you're right. Yeah. And also, weird.
And I'm definitely on Michael Moore's side politically.
Oh, hey, man. I'm a liberal as well, and I don't mind using the phrase liberal anymore. And that's kind of falling out of fashion. But no, you're right. And the cool thing about Heston was he was a complicated guy because he was a conservative, but marched with Martin Luther King, and supported civil rights. I think he was it was a different era where you could be a social liberal and a political conservative. Agreed. Yes.
The Omega Man.
Yes.
Had an interracial love interest at its heart. That was not common in the early 70s.
Damn straight.
Especially with a big movie star. And he was like, no, this is the story. Let's do it.
Absolutely, man. And truly those movies, the Ape movies and Soylent Green and Omega Man, it's like, at a very interesting point in his career, Charlton Heston is really kind of leading the science fiction front with some pretty amazing movies.
Before Star Wars, it was like basically everything up until like Logan's Run, which was sort of like the salad to the main course of Star Wars. It was Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
It was Charlton Heston.
No, totally agree, man. And pretty amazing body of stuff, and a really an interesting guy. But as we were saying earlier, spearheaded them thing, and you can see the proof of concept film they put together for Planet of the Apes. It's on YouTube. You don't need to buy the box set if you don't want to, but of course we have recommended because they're amazing. Right. All 5 of them are amazing movies, and that's why I started to say I love Escape, because Escape really does start as this weird, almost wacky comedy.
Yeah, Escape is as I've said, the original Planet of the Apes is basically a giant episode of Twilight Zone. Mm-hmm. And Escape from the Planet of the Apes is basically a giant version of Love American Style. Until the end, when someone said, I have an idea, let's shoot a baby.
It's true. It gets so funny. And then, it's like they're on the run, and it gets ridiculously dark. Yeah. But it's a great... Again, man, and I know, again, you lived through those ape marathons at the drive-ins and theaters.
Yeah, I Escape was the first one I saw at the movies. I saw it at the drive-in when I was a kid. Yeah,
that's great. That's great. I had my parents had a friend who worked at a film distributor, and we saw at their home the original Planet of the Apes, I want to say like in 70 or 71. But for me, it was whenever the CBS movies, whenever they would show them on CBS, and CBS seemed to have the license, and of course had the TV series subsequently as well. But yeah, I pretty much saw them first there, and then finally in the drive-in on those marathons and stuff. And I was going to say, Escape is, it ends.
You had good parents if they kept you on a whole marathon at the drive-in.
Absolutely. And then of course, Conquest is as interesting and dark as it gets. And then Battle is this great Disney movie.
Yeah, Battle is basically a Disney movie. Conquest is the really interesting one.
Sure.
Because it's once you have seen the first cut, you can't go back. You can't go back to the studio released version.
So I know there's the alternate ending.
Bloody horrible, the alternate ending.
Okay, because is there more difference than just the alternate ending with the original cut?
Just the battle is bloodier. There's a couple of other scenes.
Okay.
But tonally, it doesn't. It continues. Just the endings of these movies.
Oh yeah.
Everyone is more bleak than the one before. It's truly amazing. I
was going to ask, have you done? Because again, I know you did the essay for Beneath. I can't remember if you did it for the first movie. Are you going to do them for all 5 movies on your podcast?
Eventually, I'm sure I will get around to it. I think if I ever do Planet, it will have to be like the whole podcast.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, and then, but I'm friends with Lou Wagner. I think I could get Lou Wagner to talk about it. It would be like a whole. I should do it with the 50th anniversary.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, man, this is the year to do it, obviously. So
yeah,
cool.
I'll probably do it with the release of the. Yeah, I'll have to do it for the summer. I will.
That's fun. I love the podcast.
Just to plug the book.
Say it again.
Just to plug the book.
Yeah, man. Well, and yeah, that's good timing as well, obviously. So that would be good. And that's the thing, man. I love the podcast, and I know that your bread and butter and, more importantly, your paychecks are coming from these other great projects you're doing, like Stand Against Evil and stuff. And I can appreciate not only when you're writing and creating Stand Against Evil, but also when you've been acting in various things, that it's tough to maintain a regular podcast schedule. But it's always great when they come out, and I subscribe. So I'm always, happy when I see it in my feed, and it's like, oh, thank God, there it is. Excellent. New episode.
Yeah. Well, it does come out, we do have a schedule. We come out within the last 4 days of the month.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
It's always within the last 4 days of the month. That's how we get paid.
Excellent. That's very cool.
By Casper mattresses.
Hey, man, that's cool. And hey, I'm glad, and I'm glad that again you're getting something for it. And believe me, as a podcaster with a radio day job, I know how that goes as well.
Right.
Stand Against Evil, because also I don't want to. I appreciate your time, and I don't want to miss the opportunity to talk about the IFC show.
Plug away.
It's hilarious, man. 2 seasons, and you're working on season 3.
I'm writing the 3rd season as we speak. Tomorrow, I have a full story room of what we call. I have some writers, and we have four of the 8 scripts, what we call broken.
Sure.
And we'll be breaking the other 4 tomorrow. I'm right in the thick of it. And I'm very, very lucky, and I'm very, very grateful. I've never been busier, but that's a good thing.
I understand. Well, it's great, and I love the tone of it. I love, obviously, the comedy is great, and you got, John, is it McGinley? Is that how you say John?
Yeah, John C. McGinley. Yeah. Johnny C.
Hilarious. And really, I love the look of it, and I'm sure, and I'm reasonably certain you've mentioned it on the podcast as well, that you give it that 70s horror movie kind of patina.
It's interesting. Because the directors that directed the first season, they're really talented guys. Jack Bishop and Justin Najim. They're really talented. And I said to them, I wanted to have a very retro look, which they thought of like the 80s. Like they were thinking Stranger Things, Freddy Krueger, and all that stuff.
Sure.
And I was like, no, I'm 10 years earlier. I wanted to look like The Last House on the Left, House of Dark Shadows, When Michael Calls, like all those weird 70s TV movies. And the music is evocative of that as well. The music is done by a friend of mine named Eben Schletter, who people probably know mostly from Mr. Show.
Oh, wow.
And he's just, he's my friend I know who's a composer, and he's brilliant. And I gave him the soundtrack to House of Dark Shadows, and I was like, I want it to sound like this.
Fantastic.
And nailed it.
Hilarious.
I mean, Evan's one of those guys that's like scary talented.
That's excellent, man. No, it's funny as hell, and it really does. It's perfect for horror fans, and especially retro horror fans that are really going to enjoy it. Definitely modern. I mean, it's timeless. And I always loved your elevator pitch too of what if my dad were Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, that was basically the idea. That was basically to keep it short and sweet. That was the premise. And what's so funny is it takes so long to get the simplest idea.
In what way?
You'd think I'd have come up with this thing 20 years ago.
Oh, I see.
But it took that long, and eventually I was like, oh yeah, what if I just do this? And it worked out. So I was very happy. But it was one of those things where it had been looking me in the face for so long I couldn't see it.
I understand. No, I understand. You did a great documentary about the old horror shows.
Yes.
Like, that started in the 50s, and, people like Sven Gulli now modern day, are doing,
right.
Hosting kind of the great monster films and other kind of fun horror films.
The only job I've ever felt qualified to do.
I have, it's funny living in Chicago. I did a short video interview with Sven, with Rich Coase about 3 years ago. And,
oh, really?
And I'm getting the opportunity to sit down and do a Q&A with him at the Chicago Comic-Con coming up in the spring. And nicest guy on the planet. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing, man. And then honestly, it is so cool because I saw Joel Hodgson go up to him at that show that I shot the video with. And I know you're one of these guys as well. Go up to him and say, hey, man, thanks a lot. You really helped inspire what we do. And the great thing was he's like, and if you don't already know, so many of my West Coast friends, comedians, think you're hilarious and really love what you do. And, as you know, being our age and everything and coming from that 5-channel world that we all grew up in, 2 UHF channels and, the networks, there's a guy that was busting his ass for decades doing the UHF show. And, and now is so nationally known. And I'm so happy for him because he's such a great guy.
Yeah, he deserves every success that he gets. And I'm really, again, he's one of those people that and Joel too. It's like, I can't believe that I can't believe I'm friends with this guy.
Well, again, I mean, hey man, you're part of that comedy mix. And honestly, I remember you doing Barney Fife, 25 years ago. I don't mean to age us, but hey, man. Yeah. And that's the thing. And also, by the way, there's another great essay from your podcast, Ghost of Mr. Chicken. And,
oh yeah,
and it's true. You're right. And it's
Did I do the Ghost of Mr. Chicken?
It was so obvious back then. But again, you don't realize it until somebody plays it out. It's like, yeah, that's a Mayberry episode without Andy.
It's true. Did I do the Ghost of Mr. Chicken on the podcast?
Yes.
Oh, I don't remember that.
There you go, man. No, it was.
Was it on Halloween?
I think it was one of your Halloween episodes. And it's like, and if not as an essay, I know you at least maybe with the Rob Cohen or whoever, another guy that helps you collaborate, obviously on.
Yeah, we talked about it extensively.
Yeah, and you're right. It's like, oh my God, they hired the same townspeople, and I think you said that Griffith was on the set.
Andy Griffith was on the set. Oh, yeah, and it might have been with Drew Friedman and Larry Karaszewski, because the one thing that I do remember talking about is that movie is like a primer on 60s character actors. Like every great television character actor is in that movie. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It's amazing. Alice Kravitz is in that movie.
That's funny from Bewitched and everything. Yeah,
yeah.
And I just know the big brassy lady with gray hair that she's
Haro Taro Solomon.
What's her name again?
The woman that goes Haro Taro Solomon.
Yes, exactly. And I know her from the Odd Couple episode where she's a maid for Oscar for 2 seconds. And,
that's right.
Say again, and you're as I've heard you say, your kids make fun of you for watching MeTV because it is where television goes to die as far as the advertisers and the catering audience with the walk-in tubs and the catheters and the second mortgages. And,
I know. And reverse mortgages.
Yes.
And how to get a free phone.
And I don't remember some of the reruns that and Antenna TV do, and that's why I'd always heard about My Mother the Car, but never actually saw it. And now I saw it, and it's like, wow, it really was bad. Or It's About Time, the caveman. Which has kind of a Planet of the Apes nod to it as well. It's About Time, and predated Planet of the Apes as far as
predated Planet of the Apes.
Astronauts going back to the prehistoric times and everything. Yeah, those shows are just rough, but it is a pleasure to finally see them. And see all those other great kind of character actors of the 60s and stuff on these things. And the Billy DeWolf's on Good Morning World, the radio show.
Billy DeWolf.
Yeah, I see. There you go. I knew I spoke your language. There we go, man. It's a pleasure watching it. And I know your fascination with Paranoia.
Not to be confused with Billy Van, who hosted the House of Frightenstein.
I don't know that show. Fantastic.
And was later a member of the repertory cast of the Sonny and Cher show. Along with, I believe, Michael Keaton and David Letterman later.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Or they were on some show. They were on like the new Laugh-In or the new something.
So who was your horror host in Boston?
We had two. We had a couple. We had Feep, who was a like an alien.
Sure.
It was a guy. It was no face to it. It was a weird alien thing. Then we had it was the Ghoul or Ghoulardi, early 70s. Okay. So I'm not sure. Syndicated. And then we just had Creature Double Feature, which didn't have a host.
Okay. Because we had the original Svengoolie, of course, Jerry G. Bishop, who was kind of a zombie hippie for people that are
right. Yeah. Oh, I'm familiar.
Oh, and I'm hip. I'm saying it for my audience and everything, kind of describing him compared to the way Rich does Sven and everything. But
right.
And then
I love that story that Rich tells. He basically gave Rich the character. It's so sweet.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, man, and kind of amazing that Bishop went to the West Coast, and I know he died. I want to say really not that long ago. I think in the early 2000s he passed away.
No, he just passed. Yeah, he didn't pass that long ago.
Yeah. So no, I'm really excited to be really sitting down for a nice hour with Sven and everything. That's going to be great.
Yeah.
So before we wrap, I wanted to ask about the experience of writing on The Simpsons, because that's really a great portion of your career behind the scenes, and what was it like? What did it teach you? Obviously, I'm sure it helped you as a writer, not only for your stand-up, but certainly in scripted TV as well.
Oh, yeah. No, I learned how to be a writer. I learned how to be a writer there. And that absolutely applies to my stand-up as well. I often starting your work on The Simpsons is an incredibly daunting. There's a scene. If you've ever seen the documentary "Let It Be," the last Beatles documentary,
absolutely. Yeah, oh yeah.
There's a scene where Billy Preston comes in and he's going to play.
Yes.
And that's how you feel when you walk in. You just feel like, oh, okay, I'll just play with these guys. I'm sure it will be fine. That's how it felt. I was just incredible. I mean, I knew two people on the staff, but I definitely was intimidated beyond all description. You don't want to be the guy that screws up The Simpsons. And it's, and it was also 11 Harvard guys and me. But and it took, I like to say, it took about 9 months to figure out what I call the algorithms of how you write the show.
Sure.
And how the comedy works. It took me a good stretch of time. But once I got it and I settled in, I found that I liked it. And during that, it ties to, your life. It was right when I had gotten married. We bought our first house, and it was great. Having started to do stand-up, I started doing stand-up when I was 17.
Wow!
And now it was 2000, so I was about 36, and it was really the first regular job that I had. I would get up in the morning and I would drive to work and go to my office and drive home at night and watch TV with my wife. And I wasn't on the road every other weekend. And for that period of time, it was really great. I really loved having a different kind of life, and learning how to do that. And then I found after about 6 or 7 years, I just got restless. I just wanted to do other things. And I really did miss performing live. Not that I ever stopped doing it, but you can only do it as kind of like you're definitely a dilettante. And I missed being able to really do it. So, I felt like I did what I could do, and I was ready to do other things. And that's when I left the show, but it was never out of lack of love or respect for the show. It was just I was ready to do some other stuff.
That's cool. Well, that's cool. And again, I mean, it's amazing, especially, I'm in my early 50s now, and I'm at that point where I'm getting to do different projects, and it's really fun. And I obviously I sense you're enjoying the same thing, and being able to work on the stand-up, have some dates, but then also get back to Stan and write for that. And again, developing the new show, that's terrific. So it must be very empowering to kind of be able to kind of call your shots and do what you want to do at this stage of your life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have a lot of kids, so I can't really do what I want to do. But I'm lucky that I'm very, very lucky that I get to work in these areas that I like. And it is, I mean, it's a cliche, but it is true, just writing what you know, and for a lack of a better term, and I'm sure there is one, but like following your bliss, like I just do this stuff because I like it, and eventually that world will open up to you.
Yes.
And writing what you know is such a huge piece of advice. I know, the worst writing I've ever done is like second guessing what I thought the market wanted, or some assignment that I had no connection to. Mm-hmm. Once you get into an area that is sort of like your area of expertise, that's when you can really do something great. We all have those areas, whether it's politics or sports or baseball or sci-fi movies or horror movies or what have you. Everybody has that sort of creative river that runs through them that gets them excited. And the closer you can stick to it, the better off you are.
I always appreciate having guests on like yourself, and a lot of cartoonists are able to talk about how they've been able to kind of take control over their careers and not only work for a DC or a Marvel or a Boom, but also be able to, kind of make their own stuff. And on your podcast, I've heard you kind of give that same advice. And I know you were quoting somebody else, but it really was kind of a good reality check where you're like, hey, if you want to star in something, make it and star in it. Don't expect someone else to pay for it and give you the opportunity to do your passion project. You really have to kind of take control and do it yourself. And like I said, I've been having this conversation with a lot of my guests for a long time, and it really was reassuring to hear you kind of have that same philosophy.
Yeah, and the other thing that I remember that you have to really remember, and you have to read about, they never stop serving the shit sandwich.
The powers that be.
Yeah, again, one of these people that I can't believe is a friend of mine, but John Landis
awesome.
Was telling me that I made Animal House, and then I made the Blues Brothers, and then I wanted to make this cheap little werewolf film, and they went, no.
Wow.
Yeah, it's exactly.
American Werewolf in London, okay. Obviously.
Yeah, but he had to fund it. He had to go find funding. Universal wouldn't pay for it, and
I didn't realize that. That's amazing.
The two most profitable comedies in history. Yeah, sorry, pal. You're out of luck.
Wow. And Trailers from Hell is just this weird little fun thing that he and Dante and all these guys have kind of come up with. And that's a great little thing that's living online and everything, and, is kind of a lot of fun and great, interesting hearing these filmmakers talk about these movies and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, all of those things that we love, Famous Monsters Magazine, what Daphne and Gavin do at Boom. It's just, that's the great thing about being in the arts, is that you get to live in what you love. I have a lot of friends, people that I know in this business that are so much richer than I will ever be. Because their passion is accumulating money. But that just seems like a terribly joyless existence to me.
Understood. Yeah, man. No, I agree. And again, I think when you reach this point in life and everything, it's like, you turn the stuff down that might make money because you really want to do what you want. And I'm glad that you're, again, able to follow those pursuits. Are you going to be on the comic convention circuit at all?
I was going to go to, what is it, CE32?
Oh, you're coming to Chicago, C2E2.
Well, I was going to come this year, but it is the week of my I was going to come because, one of my many ridiculous side projects is Janet Varney from Stand Against Evil and I have developed a live staged reading of Plan 9 from Outer Space.
I've heard you promote it, yes.
Yeah, and it's really an amazing show. Thanks to Ed Wood, more than anyone.
Here.
And we were going to come and do it, but unfortunately this year it is the same week as my children's school vacation.
Okay.
And so Dad is not going to a convention in Chicago.
I understand. Absolutely.
Dad is taking them where they want to go.
Sure.
But I look forward to doing it, and I would love to come to a convention and do some kind of show or performance. I don't want to just
do a panel or just do a signing or whatever.
Yeah,
I understand.
I'll have to do everything. I'm hoping to do a lot with the book. I'm really, the fact that I am even in this tiny microscopic way affiliated with the Apes canon is surreal, and to be the whole idea of the spine of a book that says by Rod Serling, adapted by Dana Gould, is surreal to me. It's. I mean, I'm looking at a picture of him. I have it on my desk as an inspiration to go back to work and not fart around on eBay all day.
Understood.
I mean, he was one of my real heroes, and the fact that I'm even tangentially connected to him in some bizarre way is really astounding to me.
I understand, man, and I like constantly look for his UCLA speeches that he gave.
Yeah.
Things like that. Of course, his wonderful Mike Wallace interview pre-Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Do you ever see the photo of him? I see it. It comes up on Tumblr a lot. It's him giving a speech, but he's smoking a cigarette in the spotlight, and he looks like Sinatra. But it's Rod Serling giving a speech. It's really crazy.
That sounds great. That's excellent. You know who I'm like? Again, you go down these rabbit holes, as I'm sure you do, and it does keep you from work.
I live in a rabbit hole.
Believe me, I understand. I was watching and listening to a lot of these UCLA talks, and the guy who created Little Abner, Al Capp. And and I'm sure you know him from berating John and Yoko in bed during the bed-in and everything.
Yes.
Man, in this Harvey Weinstein.
You know what? He's kind of right.
What's that?
He's kind of right.
Kind of, but and honestly, a really interesting guy. And I don't know how much you know about him, but has this Harvey Weinstein history where?
Oh yeah, no, he was a terror. Yeah, well, all those right-wing guys were awful, but I do, as you get older, you realize that a lot of, like, I could see how people thought John and Yoko were annoying.
And I mean, and I forget the name of the woman journalist that's like,
Yeah, I know that one where he goes, maybe we'll save someone's life. And she goes, really?
Yeah.
You're going to be like, she's kind of right.
Yeah, no, but at the same time as well, not really understanding where he's just coming from in terms of, hey, man, is there anything wrong with just kind of maybe, let's not kill today? As Kurt
absolutely.
But yeah. So well, listen, hey man, I've taken up enough of your time. I hope we have the opportunity to do this one down the road for a different project or whatever. I really appreciate the podcast and really excited for the Apes graphic novel, Planet of the Apes Visionaries. I believe is the
as am I. I'm still waiting.
Well, good luck with the deadlines, and very excited about season 3 of Stand Against Evil.
Yeah, thank you. Stand Against Evil. Yeah, it'll premiere in November 1st, 2018.
Oh man, that's
on IFC.
Right on the dot, just like before, right around Halloween. Perfect time.
Just in time to miss Halloween.
No, that's they'll do the marathon of the previous season. That's all right. Man.
That's right.
Too much.
That's right.
No, thanks for your time, man, and really continued success. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
Hey, man, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
There you go, Dana Gould. I'm so sorry that Stan vs. Evil didn't make it beyond 3 seasons, but 3 seasons is good. Hell, in this television streaming environment with so many things to watch, I think Dana and company did just fine. And it was a blast of a series. If you haven't seen it, it's very funny. It's very authentic, as I said in the interview. And also, read Boom Studios' adaptation of Planet of the Apes, the Rod Serling screenplay that Dana wrote, Chad Lewis drew. It was a great, great series, or I should say great graphic novel. And, of course, the Dana Gould Hour. Check out his podcast every month, wherever you find podcasts. It's hilarious, and it's usually 2 or 3 hours long. Always worth the wait, always entertaining. He does a deep dive and examines a movie or a film career or some sort of phenomenon, along with great interviews and very funny conversations with comedian friends and also great people from the movie and television business and music business, for that matter. Dana Gould, hope you enjoyed today's show. All brought to you by Aftershock Comics. What can I say? They're closing out October with really great stuff, whether it's You Are Obsolete, Issue 2, or The Stronghold, Volume 1, the first collection of Phil Hester and Ryan Kelly's amazing series. The debut of Shoplifters will be liquidated. Think Judge Dredd working for Amazon. That should intrigue you enough. There's Elliot Real's new Midnight Vista, Issue 2 came out. The collection of The Last Space Race, a fantastic look at, as it says, The Last Space Race. The space race as it is in the near future. 10 minutes from now, as people like to say. Peter Galloway's excellent series that's just getting underway. There's Cullen Bunn's Knights Temporal number 4, a great series. Jimmy's Bastards, the complete collection from Garth Ennis and Russ Brown. You got Marguerite Bennett's graphic novel Horde, Dark Ark After the Flood, Issue 1. Dark Red, Tim Seeley's wonderful series, continues with Issue 7. Juan Doe's series, Bad Reception, continues with Issue 3. There's A Walk Through Hell from Garth Ennis and Gordon Suzutska. Volume 2, The Cathedral, is out this month, along with Animosity 24 from Marguerite Bennett. Just some of the great books that came out this month in October from Aftershock Comics that are worthy of your attention. Hey, march right back to your comic store. Check out some of these wonderful books from Aftershock. We'll be talking to more Aftershock creators. In fact, Steve Orlando is back with the new Aftershock project that'll be coming out in the spring. And, of course, we also acknowledge Steve's wonderful Aftershock series, Dead Kings. But that's going to be the next word balloon. But you don't have to wait. Go to their website. You can read about Dead Kings. The collection there, Hard Road, Home. Along with these other series that I mentioned, you'll find full story descriptions, preview pages of art, and the diamond codes on how to order these books through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. All right, thanks again for listening. Thank you, League of Word Balloon listeners, and your support via Patreon. I can't thank you enough as we close out October for your continued support. Patreon.com/wordballoon, or click on the Patreon ad on the front page of wordballoon.com. November is coming, starts tomorrow, and I've got new material all ready to start the month off, and I'll be presenting it with you. My conversation with Steve Orlando is going to kick off November, as we talk about his Wonder Woman annual and great work on Gotham City Monsters. It's kind of a bleed over of Weird Balloon, if you will. Can't help it. It's that kind of season, and I have a feeling people are going to, even though it's early November, might still be having Halloween parties just like they did last weekend. So have a great weekend. I will talk to you on Friday with a new Word Balloon with Steve Orlando, and we will usher in November together. So thank you, and talk to you soon. Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2019.